Welcome to Super Movie Brothers. Let's start the show.
This is a podcast on the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.
Welcome to Super Movie Brothers, episode 165. I'm your host, Super Movie Brother Dave.
I'm your host, Super Movie Brother Jay.
Hey, Jay, I'm just going to let you know what I've been up to this week real quick. If you can tell by my voice, I've had an upper respiratory infection for the better part of a week. So my voice, but
I sound a little hoarse too because I've been screaming all night last night. So
yeah,
I'll get into that.
Yeah, whoa, be careful. I mean, we're not a family-friendly show or anything, but I mean, you don't want to let people too in on what you get up to with the ladies that you go on dates from Bumble with. So with this voice, like what I realized, like now I can, like there's certain sounds you can only make when you wake up in the morning, like stuff like that. This is all I can do, but I can do the best Macho Man Randy Savage when I have an upper respiratory infection like this. Ooh, yeah. Bonesaw is ready.
We should do some recordings with that voice.
See there,
and there's the aftermath.
There's the aftermath of it right there. Just all that cough. So that's how my week's been going. Let's find out, Jay, what you've been up to this week.
It's been 1 week since you looked at me. Cocked your head to the side and said I'm angry.
All right, Jay, what you get down to doing this week? What were you up to? Anything fun? Anything interesting?
I had a great weekend. I mean, we had a great party. That was a lot of fun.
Sort of. We
had a friend's
overlapped
party.
for like a half hour. That's about it.
Sure.
So
I went back to the party. I had a late start to the party. Beer-lympics, our friends hosted. And Dave had an early start. He was a member of the Beer-lympics, and I was the DD.
It was, so we've done Beer-lympics before, and it's a lot of fun. There's a ton of beer games that we play. It's kind of like our Yard Olympics, except this is all drinking games. And they changed up the games this year. Like last year, I won. My team was first, and this year we didn't even place. Man, we came in fourth. That's like first loser. That's terrible. We couldn't even take home the bronze. But yeah, the games were all completely different. But it was all a lot of fun. We played this really fun game where it's kind of like an Easter egg hunt, but for your beers. Each team has 2 beers, and the refs went and hid the beers from us, and they were anywhere on the property. So you had to find it like an
literally
Easter egg. Anywhere. So you had to find it like an Easter egg, and then when both of your teams have the beers, they chug them, and then you're done. So
it's a great little game, right?
So we go out there, and one of the rules to it is if you find another team's beer, you can do anything you want to it. You can't tamper with it. You can't lick it. You can't, dip your balls all over it, but you can shake it up and you can rehide it on them. So I was finding more beers for other people than I was for my own, and that's exactly what I did. I was hiding other people's in way worse spots, and by the time we were done, we were still missing a beer, and I knew it was a beer that I had. Everyone's like, well, what'd you do with it? I was like, I shook it up, and I chucked it over my shoulder into a bunch of bushes, and now it's not there. So someday they'll find that beer. But yeah, it was a great bit of fun, but I did have my daughter at home, and I wanted to get home in time to put her to bed, and you were kind enough to give me a ride home so that I could do that.
Yes.
So that was good. And then what else did you get up to this week, man? I heard you had a little bit of basketball
the next day
game?
I had a shit fest of a drunk golf outing, which was a lot of fun. And 2 days later, I had my championship basketball game. We were very confident going in for the most part. We beat them prior.
I saw you guys on your golf trip, though. I saw some Instagram photos. I just wanted to say, you guys look like wild hogs, like the preppy version of wild hogs.
Yes, it's very much that. They're in their upper 40s. Kids are already like, college and shit, and, they're having their health problems starting to kick in.
Like, here's the thing.
One guy's not trying to drink anymore.
It looks fun.
We're doing shots.
It looks fun from the Instagram photos. Like, you guys look like you're having a good time. But then I zoom into their eyes, and I know they're fathers because there's soulless, like, lifeless eyes in all of their head.
Lifeless eyes, black eyes, like a doll's eyes.
And I was like, okay. They know that this is fleeting. This fun they're having, they still have to go back to reality.
It's true.
Except for you. You have that footloose and fancy free gaze because
that's why they like keeping me around.
because you young it up.
I young it up.
It's funny. Anytime you're around, you're like
it's another one of those like live vicariously through.
You're the geezer. You're the
thing.
geezer of our group, and then you hang out with them, and you get to be the young buck with them. It's fun. You really do live a complicated lifestyle, sir.
I'm a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
I just kind of like mold into different environments and just blend in, and I play roles here and there, and
you're
blending. See,
you're 6'8". You don't blend into anything.
And I see. Well, like I said, I always had the fantasy of being like a spy. You know that. I've always liked the spy.
Spies
movies,
truly have to blend in.
Bond stuff.
When everyone sees you and goes, "Holy shit, it's Bigfoot!" Then they're not going to buy you as a spy.
I know that. And I'm envious of those people.
Yeah.
So, I don't like the attention. A lot of tall people do.
Secretly,
I don't.
Secretly, you do. Actually,
I really don't.
I used you as a ploy against one of my opponents, Tony, who is
which always works.
6'7". I wanted to throw him off his game. So when you showed up, I went, "Hey, Tony, it's the only guy you know that's taller than you." And he looked at me and he gave me the dirtiest look, like "fuck you." And it's just like, man, tall guys really do have a thing about being taller than other people.
Some do.
Yeah.
I don't care. I love it. It's like, oh, cool. We got something in common. We can talk about. And
we can
whatever.
We can brag about how tall we are and how small it makes our penises look.
It's like he's got like the tall version of Napoleon complex, right? It's one of those kind of weird things.
Right. So you had a basketball game.
Oh God, yeah. Well, let's just say that it's very complicated to explain because there was a lot of different kind of dramatic elements thrown into it, and I literally.
You don't need to explain anything, Jay, because it sums it up when you told me how upset you were that you lost, and I was like, this is a Pee-wee basketball league for adults, and you are very upset about it.
Extremely.
Jay, whether you
so fucking angry,
whether you won or lost, your life is in the exact same position it was before that game happened. It doesn't matter whether
not
you
between
won
my ears, dude. I woke up angry. I was so depressed and down and sore as shit all day long. My knees,
the sore part I get.
Tailbone. I landed on my tailbone.
But I almost want to say it's kind of sadder that you're this upset about losing.
I as soon as the game whistled, I literally grabbed my shit and walked out. I didn't say goodbye to anybody. I went straight to the fucking bar.
You didn't even shake hands at everybody like a game.
Not even my teammates. I literally grabbed my shit and left.
You didn't reach your hands down your pants and just rub your balls with your hand and then shake their hands.
David, if I stayed there and anybody fucking said anything to me, I was going to fucking fight them.
You stink, Palmer. You take your hand, you stick it in your ass like this. There, now you shake hands with the guy.
Why?
I was so fucking angry, so pissed off.
Yo, get over yourself.
And yes, it was mostly because of the refs. I give the players the benefit of the doubt. They did play well. However, those fucking refs and that one ref in particular, all season long, fucking give me shit. And it was just all around across the board, horrible calls and no calls and vice versa. It was disgusting. It was horrible. I'm so, oh God. This is the reason why I choose not to play basketball too often, because of my temper. I have an extreme outburst type temperament about me that comes out in competitive team sports. And sometimes with golf.
I'm already done talking about it because you sucked all the fun out of it, Jay.
That's it. No, that's all I'm gonna say.
All right, man. We got some news that we got to discuss this week, so let's head over and let's get into our news. Some brief news stories to go over. These are just some of the ones that caught my fancy throughout the week as they've been dropping. So, first things first, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Jay. You know him. He's kind of a big star, Hobbs and Shaw and everything. He's going to be starring in another movie next summer where he plays some sort of secret agent cop spy guy who also is funny. And it's going to be in theaters every summer from now until he is in his 60s to 70s. That's just fact of life.
Fact of life. We just need to accept that.
Fake news. I'm kidding. He will be in something though.
Fake-ish news.
That is very similar to that. But also we have Henry Golding is in talks to play Snake Eyes in a G.I. Joe spin-off film. Now, what I find interesting about this is it's going to be a G.I. Joe spin-off film that's going to be about Snake Eyes. but he's the one G.I. Joe that doesn't talk. I mean, he's not funny. It's not like he's the Silent Bob of the G.I. Joe characters, but I believe he's taken a vow of silence, so he doesn't talk. So what are we going to be following there? Like, is it going to be the story between him and his brother, who's part of Cobra? You know, I don't know. I also don't care.
Hollywood's really trying to make him a big star.
That's fine.
And that's cool, because I like him a
He's
lot.
a great
I
actor.
do like him.
But I don't know why Hasbro just can't like let this go. Like, you made 2 movies. I don't know how they ever made a sequel, but somehow they did. But because the first one was so bad, everyone
They
who was
have money to spend.
Look, even Marlon Wayans was like, I don't even want to come back.
Yeah.
Like, even Marlon Wayans didn't want to come back. Like, isn't that like a red flag for you? Channing Tatum, who was supposed to be the franchise star, was just like,
That's his second least film to do.
He's like, he was
Besides
contracted.
G.I. Joe.
He was contracted to do it, but Channing Tatum was like, I'll come back for the second one, but you have to kill my character off in like the first 15 minutes. Or
Right.
Yeah, and they did.
That's right.
And they absolutely did. And then they made it all about The Rock, because that's what you do with franchises. So
The Rock saves Hollywood.
So
Along
here's-
with the world.
Just to tie it into our first fake news story, this real news story is probably going to be Henry Golding and The Rock buddy cop movie, G.I. Joe Roadblock with The Rock and Henry Golding as Snake Eyes. That's how you continue this franchise.
All right.
Because that's what they're going to do. That's what Universal's going to, that's what they have to do, right? To make this care to anybody.
You can't just keep joining him up with Kevin Hart all the time. You know?
Kevin Hart is a G.I. Joe named Teeny.
I wonder if it's like, you know, they just got to like match every single kind of species up along with The Rock. You know, you got like the British guy, Jason Statham. You got Kevin Hart.
I'm sorry, did you just call other people, other human beings, like different species?
May or may not have said that.
I'm sorry I'm coughing. That it only happens when I laugh that hard. But you literally said species, as if like British people are a different species. Or what's even worse, Jay, like you went full eugenics and you were pretty much backwards referring to Kevin Hart as a different species.
Well, that's left to be up to. That's debatable. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we'll say.
We'll play the tape back sometime. But I'm gonna call mildly racist on that. If we were playing a game, is it racist? I'm gonna check the box. Yes.
I could see that. I'll admit that.
Next news
It's been coming out a lot lately.
So apparently, as Jay gets older, his racism just comes out. No, we're kidding. Jay didn't mean that. He just misspoke. He used the wrong word.
This is why I'm not in politics.
This is what you would be. You'd definitely be the guy that
I'm no speechwriter.
You'd definitely be the guy that like refers to Puerto Rico as like some other country, and it's like, no, we're part of your country, you assholes. All right. So in other news, and this one really actually makes me sad because one of these movies I really like. The Lion King remake surpasses Frozen for the highest grossing animated film of all time. That actually kind of bothers because I think
Already even. Wow.
I kind of feel like Frozen kind of like deserved that spot in some way. It came out at a time.
It was a phenomenon.
Right.
An original movie phenomenon.
Yeah, it came out at a time when Disney wasn't that popular, especially with their princesses. They did a story that was completely different than any other princess story they had ever done. You know, they did the great musical fanfare and stuff like that. And I have to watch it a lot in my house. So, because my daughter loves Frozen. So I have to like kind of somewhat attach myself to it and be like, you know what? I do like this because it's a war of attrition, really. Like the more and more I see it, the more it just indoctrinates me to love it more. But, you know, the Lion King remake, it was the thing.
Yeah.
That happened.
I mean, people like it, but I don't think people are going to beloved it.
What I really think this is, first off, it's Lion King, so it's already I mean, the original one was better than Frozen and stuff like that. It captured the hearts of like literally everyone in the entire world. And I think this is like the curiosity effect, where people are like, it's not good, and people are like, yeah, but it's the Lion King, so I'm still kind of curious. I want to see it,
Of course.
and they're willing to pay to go see it.
Of course. I understand why people went and saw it.
Yeah.
100%. I do. Now, with the next news story,
Yeah, go ahead.
I got my beef.
All right, Jay, what's this other Disney news that you're having such an issue with?
Well, Disney is actually trying to figure out a way to develop a sequel to Aladdin.
The Return of Jafar.
Because they also crossed $1 billion somehow. Now, this reminds me exactly like the Alice in Wonderland saga.
This is amazing. This is like first off, all these Disney we can say quote unquote failures because they're like critical failures in a way. They're not these big sensational movies. They're not Endgame, right? They're not or a Star Wars movie. You know, they're not doing gangbusters. They're kind of just slowly trickling in with their box office. Like, you know, the first weekend's great, and then it trickles off, but it stays in the theaters long enough that like the money just keeps trickling in. And it reminded me of, like, you know, when you watch like Daytona 500 or you watch F1 and stuff like that. It like Disney's treating these movies like they are the race car driver who's got 2 laps left. They're on dead E and they could pit right now, but then they're not going to win. So fuck it. We're just going to go fucking harder at it. And we're just going to keep driving for that finish line, and they stall out just as they cross the finish line. Like that's how they're making $1 billion. I feel like they are strategically placing these movies to come out at times when there's not a lot of other family films to come out, and it's perfect for people to get their kids out to see them and trickle in those dollars.
No, there's definitely a scheming behind it. I mean, they're definitely planning that kind of stuff out for sure. Now, I do think
I don't know why. I just picture Disney like standing in a war room, and like on top of it, they have like all these other films, and when they're coming out, and they're just moving their pieces, and it looks like it looks like Nazi Germany, and they're just like moving their pieces,
or the Game of Thrones scenes, right?
It's like we got 2 lions' heads over here. Yeah. We got a magic carpet sigil over here, and they're just.
However, like I was saying about Alice in Wonderland, it made over $1 billion. Now, I do think most of that was because of them riding the coattails of Avatar with the whole IMAX 3D technology, whatever. Now, the sequel flopped hard. It didn't even get to I think it got $330 million. I think I just read that recently.
Right, and it cost
worldwide
practically that
worldwide,
to make.
not even domestic. Yeah, so. That was a huge failure compared to the $1 billion.
Well, that and they didn't have
Aladdin in the sequel will be the same type of situation.
They also didn't have Tim Burton behind the sequel, did they?
Correct.
Right. So that also hurts it.
But the same cast.
Because there are diehard Burtonites out there who are just like, Burton's doing it?
And that is true.
Yeah.
That is true. Now, but I do feel like that if they do go through with Aladdin sequel,
also that movie
it's going to be
the movie cost $300 million to make. $100 million of that was probably just for Johnny Depp alone to get him back in there. Well, actually, I'm sorry.
Well, at that time, yeah.
$150 million was
was
to clean him up, and then the other $150 million was just to pay him, and then they got that movie made.
Yes.
But yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, but they're going to be making this Aladdin live action sequel.
They're trying to figure out a way that nobody wants.
But they can. They had a direct to VHS sequel to it, like they did to all their movies back in the early 90s. They had Return of Jafar. Just make that one.
Well, they have Disney Plus coming out now, and they're going to be doing a lot of different things with that.
That's
true. You never know. You just never know what they're going to do.
Literally, Disney can just revive.
They can revive
all properties. I mean, we did just hear that they're like, oh, we're going to remake Home Alone, but we're going to do it on Disney Plus. And it's like, why? Home Alone is perfect.
I was angry, my friend.
When
I heard that,
Home Alone's great.
Even Macaulay Culkin had an awesome response.
Yeah, his Home Alone, yeah. But the coolest part of his response is he has an N64 controller sitting at his feet. So that's the coolest part of his response.
That is pretty cool. But in this day and age, how the fuck are you going to do?
Why are you remaking this?
How?
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
How are you going to do that with technology nowadays? It doesn't work.
How are you going to do it without John Hughes? Go fuck yourself.
Seriously, yeah.
Next news story. All right, Jay. Universal is canceling the release of The Hunt amidst all the shootings. It's strange. It's not the first time we've seen a movie get canceled because of political reasons. I mean, we famously, The Interview with Seth Rogen was canceled because North Korea was like, fuck it, we'll bomb you motherfuckers if you put this out in the theaters. And Sony, eventually, people were like, oh, and it didn't stop. It went on.
Is this worth the risk?
Is it worth it? And then the movie went straight to Crackle, it's just Sony's streaming service, which is free. And everybody watched it and went like, you know what? I'm glad we dodged this. I'm glad we dodged this bullet. I'm glad this didn't come out. We also got the awesome Sony email leaks from all of that too.
Fun times for Sony.
Fun times for Sony. That's right. That's when they were right in the midst of firing Andrew Garfield and bringing Tom Holland in and making their deal with Marvel and stuff. Memories. But so they're going to cancel this because, I mean, we've had a rash of shootings go across America. Apparently, you can just walk into Walmart with a semi-automatic weapon and just start picking people off. And, you know, I don't want to get like too political, so I won't, but I don't blame them for pulling this from the theaters. Now, The Hunt, if you're not aware of it, it's the movie with kind of like, you know, I would say a small cast, but it's Emma Roberts, Hilary Swank, Ethan Suplee, Justin Hartley from This Is Us, Ike Barinholtz, and, you know, it's about a bunch of people who wake up in a clearing. They have no clue where they are, or even like how they got there, and they are being hunted by people. And it seems like it's rich white people just shooting people for fun. They're hunting them for fun. The most dangerous game, you know. I could see how this is not something that you would want to portray, but we've seen this before. Again, this is basically the plot for Predators. The film where Topher Grace and Adrian Brody wake up on an alien planet and turn out they're being hunted by the Predators. That's what this movie is. It's just real people, and that is what has Universal so scared. It's kind of like Hostel, but probably a little bit toned down. I wasn't terribly excited for the movie, so I'm not like shocked and awed. It'll come out eventually. It's coming to a streaming service near you is what it comes down to. Next news story. All right, Jay, final news story. So Lucasfilm is going to be making their first film outside of Star Wars and Indiana Jones. I mean, that's all Lucasfilm has ever done. And Disney is spearheading the development of it, obviously. And this is going to be a film that is based on the best-selling children's novel, Children of Blood and Bone. Which is a book that was written by Tomi Adeyemi. And it's a story that takes place in a different world filled with dark magic, danger, and a young woman teams up with a princess to restore magic to the land in the aftermath of the queen's death. So, you know, it was apparently a best-selling YA novel. So it seems like it's right up Lucasfilm's alley, right? Like it's a different world, and they get to build it from the ground up and all that stuff, and how it's supposed to look. And, you know, I think it works. I think it's interesting to see that Lucasfilm is going to be, you know, Kathleen Kennedy is going to be like spearheading something different that isn't Star Wars.
It's exciting.
I think we now know what they're going to be doing in that like 2-year period after Episode 9, where they're taking Star Wars films off for a little while. They're going to be developing some new stuff, which I think is extremely interesting. I've never really heard of this series. I'm not familiar with it. I'm probably not even going to want to check it out before it comes out, because I'm not so into reading young adult novels at my age any longer, but I'm intrigued by it, and I certainly want to see what it has going for it. We know what you people like. Do we say you people?
What, can we say that?
I don't believe you people.
What do you mean, you people?
What do you mean, you people?
Fire Super Movie about Jay.
So it certainly seems interesting. It's something for us to keep our eyes on, Jay, to see how we feel about it. Maybe someday we'll get to do a trailer park for it, or just.
What do you mean, Dave? What do you mean we?
What do you mean? All right, Jay, that is this week's movie news. Let's head over and let's get ourselves into What Are You Watching?
What are you watching?
What are we watching?
I think he's trying to watch some illegal channel.
Always watching.
No, go past this part. In fact, never play this again.
All right, Jay, what'd you get down to watching this week? Please tell me it was something other than the motherfucking Americans.
Yeah, I actually did not watch much of that show. I'm not going to speak that name anymore.
You should never, ever again. Anyway.
So I called myself Arbitrage, or Traj, or I don't know how you...
Albatross?
Arbitrage?
Let me see let me see the word, Jay. Let me see it. Nope, it's arbitrage. Yeah. Okay. Hey, you were saying it right. Hey.
Well, he don't know talking good like me and you. So his vocabularistics is limited to I and am and Groot.
All right, so this one is a very interestingly and a very taut, high-class New York hedge fund, like, wealthy banker, manager.
So disinterested already, but
played
continue.
by Richard Gere, gets entangled with it's kind of like one of those like 24-hour movies. Like he's just under the gun, under the spotlight. He's about to get an award for his great job, but actually he's secretly losing a shitload of money, and he has to get this deal through. And another big plot twist happens where there's a murder and he's entangled with it, and a lot of different kind of interesting, engrossing thriller aspects in high sci New York City with a lot of great actors in there, with Richard Gere. So it's definitely worth a watch.
Sounds a lot like Eyes Wide Shut minus the sex.
But better.
But better than Eyes Wide Shut?
As a movie as a whole, in a lot of ways.
You love Eyes Wide Shut, though.
No, I do.
But only for the sex.
But, I mean, this is like it's like a 95-minute movie. It's a very taut little thing. It's edge of your seat thriller kind of thing. It's really cool.
Pass. What else you got?
I actually saw Take Me Home Tonight. Take me home tonight.
Someone was perusing Netflix past 1 a.m. That's what happens. You watch Topher Grace comedy from 10 years ago.
80s, cocaine, fun. Yeah. So this is kind of like this, like that low, mid 28,
The best part about that movie is that it has Michael Biehn from fucking Aliens in it. That's the best part of that movie.
Not just that, but, a nice, sexy Teresa Palmer and, Topher Grace trying to be a movie star still.
Oh, Jay, I'm not like you. I don't reduce women to their to their looks like you do.
Well, she didn't have much real acting to do in this movie. This was straight up for her looks.
She was there to be a piece. We get
it. and that's what it was. Anna Faris, like Dan Fogler was a lot of fun.
Dan Fogler's fun in everything.
Chris Pratt. I'm not sure if this was when they first met, Chris Pratt and Anna Faris, but or they were already married at the time. I don't know.
Who knows? We all know how it ends, though.
But that's true. But it's.
One of them's rich and famous, and one of them is still on the TV show Mom.
It's kind of still worth watching, though. Like, it's not that good, but it's not that bad either. Like, some of the fucking comedy stuff.
Oh no, Lauren just rewatched it a couple weeks ago, and I watched it with her, and it gets a couple chuckles.
It does.
It's fun.
It does.
It's fun.
It's worth your time if you're just looking for something simple. Fun little watch. A lot of cool little 80s references between the style and the cars. And
speaking of Anna Faris, Lauren also rewatched The House Bunny this week. I came home from work one day, she was watching The House Bunny, and I was like,
I forgot all about that.
I was like, this movie is garbage, and then I watched it and I go, it's strangely endearing somewhat.
It kind of is.
And it's Colin Hanks. I love Colin Hanks. Anytime I see him, he puts a smile on my face.
Well, it's Legally Blonde, essentially.
It is.
That's really what it is.
It really was.
Right?
Yeah. A little raunchier, but yeah, Legally Blonde. Sure.
Yeah. And I finished up the season of Euphoria. Definitely did not end with a bang for me, but I still respect the show and what it's trying to do. It's certainly ballsy. It's not for everybody. It's very hip and modern. But if you're into some dark material about the current youth of today...
I've been waiting for the entire series to come out just so I can check it out, because I want to see... the type of actress Zendaya is outside of Spider-Man, because I'm not familiar with her Nickelodeon work, right? So,
right.
So I want to see the kind of actress that she is.
She's solid. She's very good.
Yeah.
And that was my problem with Spider-Man, because I was seeing too much of her in Spider-Man.
In that character.
You know what I'm saying? Because you'll see if
you're starting to not be able to differentiate between the actress and the acting, where you just feel like she's playing herself, like Ryan Reynolds does in everything he's ever been in.
No, because I don't think that's her. As an actress, I think she was just playing. It was almost too similar of a role, like that new age, modern, very dry, very too smart for her own good, kind of like deadpan.
That's why she works as a voice for her generation. That's probably why she works as it.
Maybe I haven't seen her enough stuff. I'm not really sure.
None of us have.
The Greatest Showman. She was in that. I saw little bits of that, but she was fine.
It's funny. Lauren can hear us talking, and she said she's pretty sure that Chris Pratt and Anna Faris met on Take Me Home Tonight.
Thanks, Lauren.
She gets a producer credit for this episode.
Yes, she does. And just because we were talking about it recently, I rewatched Chef, and of course, it's
amazing,
beloved. I love that movie.
Such a lovely little tale. So what I got around to watching this week, man, I am gonna go on one of my diatribes just a little bit, just for a brief second. I watched a documentary, Jay. It was written and directed by Bill Neal, and man, it stars Richard O'Barry. If you don't know who Richard O'Barry is, I've talked about him on the show before. He was a big part of the movie, of the documentary Blackfish. He also was behind the documentary The Cove, where Japanese, cordon off a bunch of dolphins every year, slaughter them, sell their meat, capture them for shows and everything like that.
What's the title?
So this movie is called Long Gone Wild. And what this is it is a documentary about the trade of orcas going on past Blackfish. So they very much acknowledge that they are a documentary that wouldn't exist without Blackfish, right? Like Blackfish was this big phenomenon. It caused, an uproar in our society that forced people to take a stand against SeaWorld, which then forced them to take a stand and change their business practices. What this is doing is it's looking deeper into SeaWorld and how they've been claiming to change their business practices and kind of shedding a light on how they're just kind of weathering the storm until they can bring their old business practices back. And even though in the United States it is now the capture, and most of the UN also agrees that the capture of marine mammals is illegal. So most of the marine mammals that are in these parks are now considered I forget, they are attrition based, I believe is what they said, which means once they all die out, they're all done. There will be no more. There's no active breeding program. But it sheds some interesting light where like California did pass the law where no orca is allowed to enter or leave the state. As a state law, they cannot enter or leave the state, and breeding is taken out. So all the orcas that are in San Diego can never leave. They can never do anything with them, and they're no longer allowed to breed them. It's illegal. Florida tried to pass a similar law right after SeaWorld basically came out and made a stance saying like, we will not breed our orcas any longer, and we will not get in the water with them anymore. They are animals that are going to be used for educational purposes, and that's it. And then Florida tried to put that into law, saying we're going to do exactly what this law is just doing exactly what you're saying you want to do, SeaWorld. So all you have to do is agree to it. And of course, SeaWorld paid a bunch of lawyers and lobbyists to get that law thrown out of Florida government.
Wow.
Right. So because they still have plenty of other parks they can send their whales to. And the reason that they want it to go away is because in China, just about every week, a new marine park is opening. And they need whales, dolphins, seals, sea lion, need these animals to perform. So when you go to China and you go to one of these marine parks, it's like going to a marine park in the USA circa 1970s.
Are you surprised the SeaWorld is still around?
No, not surprised at all. Not surprised at all.
Why?
Because these are because these are magnificent animals that everyone wants to see, and not all of us can afford a vacation to the Puget Sound for 2 weeks while we troll up and down in a boat to see them in the wild and stuff like that.
Okay.
They still capture the imagination of people. And let's face it, 50% of the United States, populace doesn't know the name of the vice president. Do you think 50% of the people have seen Blackfish or following the conversation that's going on around these animals?
Or even just give a shit.
Right. Or even just give a shit. Right. I mean, we still hunt wolves in this country. We still, we don't care enough about, Endangered Species Act or whatnot to do anything about it. So no, I'm not surprised. I, for one, will never take my child to SeaWorld. It actually killed me for a while that we were going to Sesame Place, and that was for a long time a SeaWorld's park. It was owned and operated by SeaWorld of America, which meant like every time I took Logan there, I was giving SeaWorld my money. I may not be watching their whales perform, but I was still giving them my money.
You were funding them to support what
that.
They're still doing.
And I put a stop. I was like, we're not doing it. I like, as much as I like seeing my daughter's
So they're not anymore?
face light up. No, they're not. They actually sold.
Oh.
They actually sold. So now that they're with a new company, we could take Logan back to Sesame Place. Yay! Fun. It's great. I'm giving some other soulless corporation my money, not one that was built off the backs of the slavery of wild animals. But
the slavery of something else.
Somewhere.
Stay on target.
Anyway, so the way that these Chinese marine parks that are opening are being funded is through Russian orca trade. Like now, it's now illegal to capture orcas in Vancouver. It's now illegal to capture orcas in Washington in the Puget Sound. It is also been made illegal in Nordic countries, in Iceland, in Norway, and it's illegal in all across the Atlantic and North Pacific. Where it's not illegal, Jay, is Eastern Russia, where they have begun capturing orcas. They know of 36. Yeah. They know of 36 orcas who have died being captured, and that's all that they know about. And new orcas are showing up in these Chinese parks every day. And these fishermen, I say that with quotation marks, fishermen, because these aren't fish, they are capturing them and they are selling them to China for $6 $7-8 million a pop. Each orca is getting, depending on its age,
Jesus Christ.
its sexual virility, whether it's a male, female, all this stuff. Depending on that, they're getting bang for it. And what the sad part is while we're watching the demise of it going on in our country, it's just now rising over in China. Because while China is this economic boom, it is this big, massive world power that is technologically as advanced as we are. Sociologically, they are in our 1960s, 70s, but they're not unreasonable. That's the point of the documentary. They wanted to make this documentary so that they could shed light on it, because, all it takes is, I believe he's the president in China, even though it's a republic and it's communism. There is a president there. He's shown he's not unreasonable. He's seen politicians talk to him about things that were less than ethical in his country, and he's made laws to change it. So that's why they wanted to make it, because they want to.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So because they don't want to be looked at as this weird backwards, Eastern country.
Right. Because that shines a bad light on all the other economic things that they have going on.
Exactly. They want to appear progressive, not just appear, they want to be progressive. So that's why this documentary exists. Look, is it as good as Blackfish? No. The way, if you are into these things like I am, I'm extremely into orcas. I've always, like, my dream vacation is to literally just go ocean kayaking in New Zealand or in the Puget Sound up in Washington, where these animals frequent, just so I can see them in the wild. Like, that's like my dream vacation. Lauren can't even step foot in a kayak or a boat without throwing up, so it's probably never going to happen for me unless I take that trip alone.
Well, she could go shopping that day.
Yeah. Shopping in gloomy Seattle. Enjoy yourself, hon. But so I do encourage people to check it out. It is available. You have to rent it right now, but it will be free at some point. But it's not as emotionally impactful as Blackfish was. However, it's nice to see someone trying to still pick up that torch and continue with this story, because it's not over, and they still need your funding. They still need your help. They still need your awareness. They just need you to be aware, is mostly what it comes down to. That was very long, and I'm extremely sorry that I dumped all that on the show. But it's like,
well, I think we all know that you have a big passion.
Yeah, look,
and I understand that. And it's a documentary. This is more important.
I'm a fat white loser in my mid-30s who loves all things nerdy. There are very few things I get passionate about in, like, a political realm, but, like, this is, like, one of those things, because I grew up as a kid going to SeaWorld, loving seeing these animals, loving,
wanting to be a marine biologist one day,
learning about these animals, and then to grow up and kind of, start to think for myself and start looking into other things. Like, because when Blackfish came out, that just confirmed things that I had already started feeling, right? Like,
and fearing.
When I was a kid, I remember, like, asking, like, at SeaWorld, like, well, they talk by echolocation, and they learn about their surroundings by echolocation. So if they're in a giant tank, doesn't that mean that it's just constant echoes for them? And they're like, oh, no, their brains are able to filter out all the noise and stuff like that. In reality, the whales in SeaWorld are mostly silent, because it would be maddening. Just imagine talking, and it's nothing but an echo that reverberates for a minute endlessly every time you speak. You would go insane. And that was me as, like, a young teenager, like, thinking that stuff. And then seeing Blackfish, I was like, I knew it, dude. They fucking lied to me my entire childhood. I was fucking lied to by these people that my parents gave hard-earned money so that I could go watch Shamu jump real high and splash me with water, and I could cheer, And, like, I think about, like, that, like, me in the stand as, like, Shamu jumps up and splashes everybody with water. And I think that's no different than when you watch, Gladiator or Spartacus, and, like, the crowd gets showered with blood and they cheer and happiness. And it's like,
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
It's pretty much the same fucking thing when I think about it.
Fuck.
Like, animals captured into slavery performing for your entertainment.
God damn.
I know. That's the way I feel about it. So, yeah. All right. Diatribe over.
That's deep.
Soapbox put away.
Yeah.
Done talking about that, Jay. I watched some other fucking cool shit this week. So I want to talk about something else that isn't that. for 1 second. I watched Glow on Netflix. Me and Lauren have been
I
going
haven't
through
caught
Glow.
it yet. Yeah. I'm looking forward
Season
to it.
three.
I heard it's solid.
Dude, way better than season 2. Like I thought
really?
season
Okay,
2
good.
got away from like
It did a bit.
I think it followed the heart of the show of Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. But I felt like it got away from like the heart of the ladies themselves in a little bit, and it became more about the show that they were producing and trying to keep that alive. And
well, the way they do their show, that's the thing. They need to have a focus point.
Right.
And it's kind of through line throughout the little short.
This one is going
season.
the season 3 is going far more into characters and character development, moving personal stories along more so than the story of the
Well, they can
organization.
do that now since they have the show established. And
Exactly.
you see how difficult it was to get that produced and get that made and going.
It's still really good, but I'm just loving that they're fleshing out these characters that I got to know in season 1, and I felt like season 2 just kept them at a status quo, and now in season 3 they're advancing them a lot more. But
How's Mark Maron doing?
fantastic, actually.
Good.
I really like his character this season because he's going through a change, and you can see you can see it in him. Look, I've loved the show since it started. I grew up as a kid loving wrestling. I'm not big into it now, but I do am nostalgic for wrestling of yesteryear. So I love watching this and getting little references about wrestling. And
I was never into it, but obviously I was fully aware of it, and I had, I guess if anybody, it was Hulk Hogan was my favorite, and that was when I was very young.
Right.
However, but it's still nostalgic for me, and it's still very interesting to see the underbelly and the behind the scenes stuff of that world.
The show's full of heart, and I encourage people that if you haven't checked it out yet, if you never gave Glow a shot, watch it. It's worth it. If you haven't started this season, fire it up because
they're half-hour shows or episodes, but it's a 13-episode season, I believe. Yeah,
and it's so worth it. And one final thing that I watched this week, I watched The Autopsy of Jane Doe. Now, this stars Brian Cox and Emile Hirsch. It was an IFC midnight movie, which I've talked about them before. I love the IFC midnight movie horror films. Not all of them are a big hit, but a lot of them are just really solid, low budget horror films. This one was directed by Andre Ovredel. And if he sounds familiar, it's because I'm going to be reviewing a movie that he directed later on in the show. I'm going to be reviewing Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. So this is one of his first films. This is one of his first features.
Okay.
I love it. I think Brian Cox is really, really good in it. Even though they're making this small movie, him and Emile Hirsch do not phone in performances whatsoever.
Well, a good Brian Cox is pretty awesome.
I don't know, quite like a little midnight gobble.
Cox.
And Emile Hirsch, we haven't seen too much of him lately, so good.
We just saw him Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So
yeah, but
very small role though.
Very small.
This is a truly effective, creepy movie that sets up a great atmosphere in the beginning, sets up a good mystery for you to follow throughout, and then gives you a pretty decent payoff. That's what I'm going to say. Is the only downside to it is I feel the ending was, whatever. Horror movie ending ends open-endedly and stuff like that. I felt like it fell into the tropes of its own genre towards the end a little bit too much. However, the atmosphere, the acting, and the mystery that they set up is all worth your time. Definitely check it out. If you get a little ho-hum at the end, it is what it is. It's a really fun ride to take to that point though.
Okay.
I enjoyed it a lot. It's streaming on Netflix, so it's free for everyone to check out. If you have a Netflix subscription,
good.
I encourage everyone to check it out. I really enjoyed it. Other than that, I made my daughter watch Endgame because Endgame came out on Blu-ray.
Oh shit!
But my daughter's 5, so I know
I was gonna say that's a long run time for her.
She is not going to sit down for that whole movie. So I started from the moment where the big 3, Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor, are standing after Avengers compound has been destroyed, and those 3 fight Thanos at the same time. My daughter couldn't understand why I was so elated that Captain America picked up the hammer, and she's like, and I was just like, you don't understand. I waited 10 years for this, darling. I waited ever since Age of Ultron when that thing moved just a little bit, that little I've been waiting for this moment.
Avengers.
And so was Thor.
Assemble.
Because Thor's reaction is, I knew it. So Thor was waiting for that moment too.
Yeah.
What my daughter was waiting for, which is 20 minutes into that final fight scene, she kept going, when is Captain Marvel showing up? Because Captain Marvel, Jay, is blonde. and Logan is blonde. So therefore, that's the superhero that she identifies with. Not Pepper.
What about all those crazy hairstyles?
What are
Look out.
If Logan wants a mohawk and a sweet mask, I'll slap him on her. I don't care. Hey, that's a good Halloween costume. Although I think she wants to be Spider-Gwen for Halloween, which I also highly endorse. So
yeah.
All right, Jay, that's going to do it for what we've been watching this week. We encourage everyone to check out this stuff that we were talking about, except for the Americans, which Jay continues to harp on and talk about. Jay, no one's gonna,
I think Dave does more than I do anymore.
I absolutely never want to talk about it. I never want to see that show. I watched like the first 2 seasons. I fell off of it. And then everyone's
2 seasons. Wow.
And then everyone's like, that show's really good. And I was like, it show's real boring, man. Just like most spy shit. I find it super fucking boring. Like, I didn't even want to watch that movie with Chris Evans that just came on Netflix because I heard it was just absolutely generically boring. And I don't like spy thrillers at all. I don't know what it is about them. I just find them extremely boring.
I wanted to see it,
dry.
and the trailer just really did nothing for me.
I hear it's extremely mediocre, but we're not talking about that, Jay. We're going to head over and let's get into a trailer park before we get into our beers.
Cut the beat and let the music play. No trailer park. Shout out to Dave and Jay. I don't serve, but it's a newer wave. We've been on since trust God save the right style. I don't want to flow until I know that the bass drop.
Welcome back to Trailer Park. The dulcet tones that you heard before the Trailer Park segment come from our good friend Thomas Iannucci. Make sure that you check him out on Spotify.
Absolutely.
I will put a link in the description for you guys to check out his music. He's a great friend of ours. He's been a big fan of the show for a long time, supporting him. We've been supporting him since we've known him. And I got to say, I actually really enjoy his music, and I think everybody should check it out. All right, Jay. The Trailer Park, what were we talking about? Eddie Murphy's return to Hollywood, it seems, right? Like, that's what everyone's saying. This is his return. He hasn't really been a thing since Dreamgirls, ever since he literally walked out of the Academy and walked away from Hollywood when he didn't win, which I think was a little bit of a hissy fit. You know, get over yourself a little bit.
No, he deserved that over Alan Arkin.
You say that. I love Alan Arkin, and I'm okay with it.
I love him in it, but Eddie Murphy was better in that role.
But what it comes down to is he essentially walked away. We both see this movie in different ways. You see it a return to form for Eddie Murphy, a return to the spotlight. I see it as money, please. Like, I need money.
I don't know.
Money, please.
Oh, no, there's no money.
I've been away from the spotlight for too long.
This looks like quality.
All right. This does look quality, but at least agree with me that Coming to America 2 is money, please.
Money, please.
Money, please. Money, please.
I'll agree.
Yeah, that's the way I feel about it. And he
one for me, one for them.
Right. So along with that, Wesley Snipes is in this Dolomite movie, which is another return for another actor.
That's cool to see.
And he's also making an appearance in Coming to America 2 as well. So
why not?
Why not? You know, maybe these are the Martin Lawrence and
Will Smith
of the two.
I'm cool with that.
My where clearly, you know, Eddie Murphy plays the more annoying one, and Wesley Snipes is the cooler, hipper, you know, better with the ladies one. For sure. All right, Jay. Let's get into the trailer for Dolomite.
Let's play that.
Hey, you know, Auntie, I was thinking about putting out a comedy record.
Comedy? You been a singer, a shake dancer?
That's real hard to break in. I do whatever it takes to get in. I come up with a new character. Dolomite is my name, and fucking up motherfuckers is my game.
He's back. What'd you do to your hair? You look like a pimp.
It's all pretend. I just created a character.
Dolomite, you a trip.
Pull on that. All my life, people been telling me no. Rudy, sometimes our dreams just don't come true. I get up in that light with my own movie, I could be everywhere all at once. Let's bring Dolomite to the screen.
In storytelling, it's always best to write what you know.
Ain't nothing to talk about in my personal life. I deal with the nightlife, club owners and mobsters and lots of pimps and kung fu.
Do you know karate?
No, but I'm a fast learner. I can learn how to chop me a motherfucker.
Action.
Take it to Hollywood.
Dolomite, give it to me.
Put your weight on it. Pretending like he could be a sex machine. What planet is this cat on? God damn, Dolomite.
Great God in heaven, you know.
Goddamn Dolomite.
All right, man. I was going to be honest, man. This movie was like, I knew it was coming out. I heard a couple people talking about it. I was not interested in it until you made me watch the trailer today. And I was suddenly...
I warmed you up to it.
Yeah, I did warm up to it. I warmed up to it a little bit. So I'm definitely interested in it because I'm interested in like these Hollywood underdog type stories. And you know, it's something that kind of like captures me. You know, it's a little bit like, you know, even though I guess it's not like, but it's something like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right? Like it's like a Hollywood underdog type story.
A little bit of behind the scenes, a little bit of like trying to make it, trying to create something new for yourself as an actor or as an artist itself as well. In that world, in the production world, in the film world. And, you know, this is pretty much set in the new era of like the black community and trying to have these kind of movies come to the silver screen and have a voice for themselves and have fun with it.
And dolomite is an anhydrous carbonate mineral composed of calcium, magnesium, and carbonate.
But goddamn, does it sound cool?
I'm 40% Dolomite.
It does sound cool. He actually spells it differently as well. But like, you know, when I was like researching this, I was like, you know, I got to check it out. But no, it is actually depicting the story of Rudy Ray Moore. Dolomite was a film that was made in 1975. It's a blaxploitation crime film. Rudy Ray Moore wrote it. He did the soundtrack for it. You know, and they even talk about it in the trailer. He was a stand-up comedian. He was a nightclub promoter. He was a singer, songwriter. Like he's done a lot of stuff in his career, and he's always trying to innovate himself. When he failed at one thing, he did something else, and it was all on this track to be famous, right? Like to be famous and to represent himself in a way that he saw himself. And, you know, he was always, they talk about he always played a character, right? Like he saw someone on the street and he wanted to play that character. And he actually got the idea for Dolomite when there was a homeless man on the street, like talking about, you know, like a black superhero that would represent, you know, the hood pretty much. And the way he described them was like, you know, this smooth talking, you know, backslapping like type guy. And he was like, you know what? Why don't I make a character like that? And Rudy Ray Moore was just like, yeah, you know what? Dolomite. That is that character. He's everything that you would want to be. Yeah. And he represents
heightened reality, fun, vision, so, you know, a little bit of guilty pleasures here and there trickled in with the character.
It seems like a ton of fun, but what really has me intrigued is it's being directed by the director of Hustle and Flow.
Yes.
Craig Brewer, who has been, you know, tied in with the TV show Empire recently, which, you know, I'm not a huge fan of that, but he also did Black Snake Moan, which was released to some mediocre critical and audience reviews. But, you know, I think the worst thing he did was the MTV produced remake of Footloose in 2011.
We don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that. No, because there's only one Footloose and it's got bacon in it. God damn it. But no, I definitely, I'm intrigued by this. This is not like a day one release go see for me though. This is more of like a, let's wait and see whether I drop my $20 to get that seat.
I will try to catch it that weekend. It's not day one perhaps, but it's definitely on my radar. It's actually a Netflix release, I believe.
Oh, really? I was not aware of that.
I believe. I'm not 100% sure.
Usually for that, like the trailer would say like, you know, Netflix original on it, and it didn't.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Okay. Well, then my barrier for entry is extremely low, and I will watch it day one because I don't have to pay anything that I'm not already paying, which is nice, you know?
Yes, and I think it's tied in with the potential big comedy special that Netflix is trying to shop Eddie Murphy to do for like $70 million or something crazy like that. So they're obviously trying to bring him into the fold.
Delirious, Raw, 35 years later, whatever he's gonna do for Netflix.
We'll see.
How can you say no to $70 million?
You can't.
I would
as a comedian. I would
stand on a stage and let people throw used condoms at me for 20 minutes for $70 million.
Oh, I'll let them do a lot more than that.
Oh, wow, Jay. My God. Please describe.
I'll put that on record.
There you go, Netflix. I put the bar up and Jay raised it.
Yeah, you're going to have to create a Netflix X streaming service for that one, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just throwing it out there.
So we will follow Dolomite. I don't think it comes out until the fall. So, when that releases, we'll probably definitely have a review for it. All right, Jay, let's head over. Let's get into our beers. Welcome back to the beer segment. Me and Jay got 2 beers that we're going to be reviewing for you, but before we do that, going to drop a line to our sponsor, Blowfish. Blowfish is the only FDA-approved hangover cure. What it is, 2 tablets that you drop into 8 to 12 ounces of water, drink it down, and your hangover starts to feel better immediately. So, if you spent your weekend with a bunch of drunk, idiotic, over 30-year-olds playing beer games and trying to take the top spot and go home with the gold, then you're going to want to go ahead and reach yourself some Blowfish. So head over to forhangovers.com. Use that promo code SMBFISH to get your 15% off and cure the scourge of hangovers for good. Super Movie Bros is also brought to you by the Podcoin app. You can download the Podcoin app on iOS or Android app stores. What it is it's a podcasting app that you can go on to, listen to your favorite podcasts, and earn extra points while you listen. For every minute of podcast that you listen to, you will earn points. Those points can be converted into gifts for yourself, like gift cards to some of your favorite places, or it could be donated to charity. And you could be a philanthropic hero just like Tony Stark.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
So head over to the iOS or Android App Store and download Podcoin and start earning a little bit extra for all your hardcore podcast listening. All right, Jay, we got 2 beers here, man. What is the beer that you are going to be reviewing for us? What's left of it in the can and not on the floor?
Yes, accidental spill. Doesn't happen very often in the studio, but shit happens. Cape May Brewing Company's, their Northeast Pale Ale. It's always ready for you. It's called the Always Ready. It's
on the way to Cape May.
Yeah, it's like a different kind of session IPA, you could say, for the most part, sort of ish. 4.8 alcohol by volume. Lots of really nice aroma. I really love the juices and the flavor and the bite. It's just got this mild little bite to it, but it's got a great mashup of different kind of fruit flavors, you know, like you get a little bit of that, like, I don't know, I think a little bit of mango in there for a change, which you don't get too often, like different kind of citrus notes, a little pineapple, and it's just overall a really good beer, especially for the ABVs. I think it's just very flavorful, drinkable. I like it. Cape May, another home run.
Nothing makes me happier than watching you describe a beer as you make like the hand cupping motion with your hand, and you're talking about juices in your mouth as you're making this hand cupping motion. You're just like, and I just love the juices, and you're like squeezing your hand ever so slightly, like you're cradling the balls. It is no,
I'm just cradling some tits. That's all. I would have used both hands then, I guess, right?
We need to talk about your fetishes if you're cupping boobs like that and talking about the juices that fill your mouth.
Oh my God, David.
I think there's an Oedipus complex inside there that just is dying to be unraveled for everybody. So
stay tuned for our Patreon episode.
One of our Patreon episodes. We'll do. I'll do some. I'll do a little hypnosis, and we'll get you to divulge all your dirty little secrets. All right, Jay. Your Cape May beer. What are you going to give it? The Always Ready Pale Ale.
I'm actually giving this a 4.25.
All right, man.
I really do enjoy this. I think it's a good one for me. Cape May is definitely a hit or miss for me. I know you love them a little bit more than I do.
90% like all their beers. Just been 1 or 2.
I respect them to no end. Still haven't been to the brewery. Still pisses me off. I hear it's great though. But this one's a great for me. This is great. I love it.
And I am drinking the Double Nickel Session IPA, and this Double Nickel is out of Pennsauken, New Jersey. Man, we got 2 Jersey beers here today.
Joysies.
Yeah, and this is 4.7% alcohol by volume. Come on, just go the full fucking 9 yards and make it 5% alcohol by volume. God damn it, put a little balls in it. And it's 50 IBUs. So for a session IPA, this thing is surprisingly bold. It is extremely bitter. Usually session IPAs very floral, very hoppy up front. This is a little bit more bolder, a little bit more robust, a little bit more of a bite at the end, a little bit more bitter. But I don't hate it, man. I actually quite enjoy it. And it's going down pretty easy, even though it has like that strong bitter aftertaste. It marries it really well with the citrus juices up front that it has, and you can really, those citra hops are what really bring you through it. So I'm going to be giving it a 4. I actually quite enjoy it, man. So it's going to be getting a 4 out of 5. All right, Jay, let's head over. I got 2 movies that I'm going to be reviewing for 2 films that came out this week. I'm going to be reviewing Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and a little gem that just absolutely warmed my heart
and shed 2 tears from Super Movie Brother Jay when he caught the last 40 minutes of it.
Blinded by the Light. All right, before we get out of here, I got 2 reviews that I'm going to be doing for you guys. So this week, I got to the theaters and I got to see 2 movies. On Friday night, I was able to get out there and see Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And then tonight, just before recording, I was actually able to go out and see Blinded by the Light. But first up, I want to talk about Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
What's that? It's a book of scary stories. Cerebellos.
Tommy's missing.
Tommy's name was in the book. What if what happens in the book is exactly what's happened for real? Cerebellos is a myth. I'm afraid I'm gonna die, Dad.
You shouldn't have taken the book.
I'm afraid that we woke something up. We've gotta stop it.
So Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is the story of a bunch of teenagers who find a book that writes them into the horror stories, and they must survive these horror tales so that they can save their friends and end the horror that is plaguing their small Pennsylvania town.
You got to do it. You got to survive.
You got to survive.
You got to survive.
Just survive somehow. This film is directed by Andre Overdahl, which we just talked about not too long ago when we were talking about The Autopsy of Jane Doe, which I highly agree. If I'm going to compare those 2 films, I like that one more, Jay.
Well, I'll be checking it out soon. Believe me.
I like that one more. But this is based on the series of short stories that were released in the 1980s by Alvin Schwartz and illustrated by Stephen Gammell. And I remember owning these books. I remember me and my brothers, going through these books and reading them. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark 2, 3. We had them, and now you can buy them all in a compilation, stuff like that. They've all been republished. Alvin Schwartz is making a mint. And it was to the point that when I saw this trailer, I immediately, the thing that flashed in my head was, did you ever think as a hearse goes by that you may be the next to die? They wrap you up in a big white sheet from your head down to your feet. The worms crawl in, the worms crawl out, in your stomach and out your snout. And it's like,
ew.
So and I was like, that was this little poem that they had in there. And then in the movie, Jay, I don't want to spoil it, but it is like a nursery rhyme that is kind of sung throughout the movie. And I was like, oh my God. So it's I'm very familiar with these stories and stuff. And they scared the ever-loving shit out of me as a kid. But what I learned while watching this movie is what scared you as a kid doesn't necessarily scare you as an adult, especially when you're an adult who watches a ton of horror films.
Sure.
Like I do.
So it's up to the filmmaker to really bring in something original, fresh, and something unique.
And after, seeing this, after I saw The Autopsy of Jane Doe, I was expecting something. I might have hyped myself up. I might have been expecting a little bit more. Now, the visuals in it, fantastic. Actually, they used a lot of practical effects, which is something that I absolutely love to see. There was actually...
This is produced by
Guillermo del Toro.
Okay.
Right.
So that's where you get the practical effects from. That's where you get the practical effects
from. And I think from Overdahl himself. But also, watching this, there was a moment where they used CGI, and it just didn't stack up. And it's just because when you watch something,
that's the tricky thing.
It sticks out. When you watch something that's gone as practical, and then
it's almost like you have to either like have a through line of hybrid,
right,
or just go all or nothing.
70-30.
Right?
70-30 is always like the best formula. 70% practical, 30%. That's how Jurassic Park did it. That's how Dad did it.
Blended,
and it's worked out pretty good so far.
Yeah.
But other than just the visuals of it, the acting wasn't bad. The acting was pretty good. I actually really enjoyed Dean Norris in it, even though he had a really small role in it. If you don't know Dean Norris,
love him.
Yeah, he was Hank in Breaking Bad.
Love him.
Go fuck yourself. he got to say the only F word in Breaking Bad history, and he got to do it well. But I thought he was pretty good in this, even though he had a completely diminished small role. I thought they could have flushed out the father character a little bit more to give someone like me who grew up reading these novels but is now an adult something to connect to a little bit, because I don't connect with the kids, unfortunately. This isn't like it where like it's like a nostalgic connection to like being with your friends. You don't get that relationship with the kids, right? You don't get to feel this connection with them because you're not watching. It's kind of a very fast-paced story, and it's actually not that long of a movie either, so there's not a lot of time to develop the characters, and that's something that like really stuck out to me as well. Like the characters, not that they're underdeveloped, they're fine. They're perfectly developed for this story. It's just, I wish they went a little bit deeper, and I kind of wish the horror was a little bit scarier. I think that's kind of like what it suffers from being a PG-13,
very watered down.
Yeah, it sits in this place where it's somewhere between Goosebumps, the movie with Jack Black, and Hereditary, or It, or Us, or any of the fantastic horror that we've been getting of late. It sits somewhere in this middle ground where it's like, it's good, but
it could have been a lot better.
You can definitely let a 10 to 13-year-old watch this film. Like, you'd be fine with that. There's nothing that's too terribly scary in it. Some of the monsters that show up are a little bit grotesque, and I think the mood that gets set is done really well. I was not crazy about the ending of this film. I did not think the ending was that strong. I felt like it was a pretty generic, almost like YA type ending. I felt this was a very like young adult type ending where they set you up where it's like, there's gonna be more. And Jay, there's 100% gonna be more, because this movie's actually doing really well. It's critically acclaimed. It's getting pretty good scores, and people seem to be really enjoying it, especially people that are my age who have this nostalgia for it, but also that younger crowd is going to see it as well because it's accessible to them with its PG-13 rating. I just, however, was left wanting a little bit more from what I got while enjoying what I was able to get. I'm giving it a B-. It was all right. It was all right.
You had a good time with it. You were yearning for more.
It wasn't worth.
Get it.
It wasn't. It wasn't worth my money though.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, whereas if I saw The Autopsy of Jane Doe in theaters, I would have been like, all right. Yeah, not bad.
Pleasant surprise.
Yeah,
right.
Because that was 1:00 in the morning, and I was flipping through TV. Interesting thing that happened while I was watching. Autopsy of Jane Doe. I had to wake Lauren up because I didn't get into this in what we were doing this week. But someone didn't break into our house, but someone very clearly walked up my driveway and went under our carport.
Whoa.
Yeah. Like in the middle of the night.
Trying to steal something.
I don't know.
Or see what if something was laying around in there.
So I went and grabbed Lauren. I was like, there's someone under our carport. She's like, what? And then like it got to the point where I was like, do I call the police? And then like she's like, and tell them what?
Wait, so what was so noticeable? Like,
so
you heard somebody?
No. I'm sitting on the couch. We don't have our windows open, but we have the blinds closed and stuff like that. I see a car pull up the street. It slows down, and I hear like
there's trash picking night.
No.
Okay.
So I hear like a muffled like, like that car door sound, like where it shuts, like someone trying to shut it quietly, right?
Ooh.
And then the car like kind of slowly drives on, and then like my car is white,
right?
So when something crosses across it,
what was the score in the background?
You see it. I actually paused the movie because the car was driving up the street very slowly. We have a very big bay window and our couch is right there. So when you're sitting up watching TV, you can see out I'm not a creepy nosy guy who was looking out the window, but I just paused it because the car was just creeping.
You knew something was off.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then I saw like my car's white. I see the shadow go like right across my car. and it just moves underneath the carport, and I start hearing sounds under our carport. So I was like, all right, there's someone under our carport, right? So before I woke Lauren up, I was like, just start popping lights on, right? Just pop lights on. They're going to know someone's awake. They're going to get the fuck out of there. And I went and woke Lauren up, and she was like, I was like, what do I do? Like, do I call the police and stuff? And I was like, and like, I thought about it for half a second, and I've never had a good interaction with police, right? Like, I've never really had a good interaction with police.
I wouldn't trust you around police either.
And how does that story go? Well, what were well, what happened? All right, a car slowed down and I saw someone walk up. Did you see somebody? And it's like, yeah, I mean, I definitely know somebody went up there, and it's like, all right, but what did it look like? I don't know. It was very dark, right? You know what I mean? Was it male or female? I couldn't tell you that. It was very, right. It would have been pointless, and maybe it would have put them on alert to like drive around our neighborhood. But by that point, by the time I flicked the lights on, that dude was gone, right? He already hopped the fence, or he went somewhere else and caught back up with his car, and he was gone. And when you get questioned by the police, blah blah blah, what were you doing? Blah, blah, watching a movie. Why are you up so late? Because I was at a all-day drinking party called Beer-lympics, and it's like, oh, so you're a little bit under the weather, huh? And it's like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I know you can see the line of questioning going against you at some point, where you just wind up being on the radar of the cops for being a crazy fucking nosy guy who's looking out the window at 1 o'clock in the morning. So I had to get up the nerve, right? I had to get up my nerve to get the flashlight and like go outside. And I was like, I'm going to bring Luca with me. And Lauren's like, that's not going to do anything, because that's the dog that when a shelf fell down in the closet and made a bunch of noise at 6 o'clock in the morning, jumped up into bed and hid under the covers between her legs. So, but I was like, yeah, but he's big. Maybe like he might make someone think twice. And I took a hammer and a flashlight with me to walk around my house.
Don't be ashamed. I'd do it too, probably.
And like, I went into like my shed, because I was like, well, if I'm going to steal something, I'll steal, something. He probably looked at my lawnmower and went like, ugh, electric lawnmower, get out of here. Just left. But there was nothing. What I did notice, what probably drew his attention, is our old TV that went out like 2 or 3 months ago. Oh. It's still under our carport, because we have to wait for one of those electronics days where you go throw everything out. And that was still there, and it was moved, and there was broken glass on the ground because he moved it. And Lauren made me break it, because all of our like credit card information is stored on it from our Hulu and stuff like that. So you could technically go onto the apps on there and steal our credit card information. So I literally busted the shit out of the thing, but it looks fine when it's sitting up against the wall. So
damn.
I think he moved it, and all the glass started falling from it, and he was just like, well, nothing here for me, and just buggered off.
On top of the lights, and he was like, maybe I should reconsider this line of work.
So, but like, so it's very it's very scary to be sitting there watching a horror movie and then seeing this shadow go by, and you're just like, what the fuck? Where's my hammer? Where's my flashlight? I'm gonna fucking die. But that was a story that happened to me this weekend.
Yeah, but I think
So when I go see scary stories to tell in the dark, when that doesn't scare me that much, it's because I'm living that shit, dog.
Damn right you are.
Anyway.
I don't wish that on anybody, though. Honestly, I can't imagine.
Time to get a home security system. We live in a very nice neighborhood, but
it's cheap nowadays. Yeah. Cameras and stuff.
Yeah, even just like one of those motion sensor cameras that goes on the outside. Those are like $30 and very easy to install. All right, Jay, I got another film that I want to review. This one, I would say I had a much more positive experience with it. This one is Blinded by the Light.
I can shed some light myself on this movie, because I actually caught the last 40 minutes of this. Not going to say how, but I may or may not have snuck into watching the last 40 minutes of this.
1987. You got Wham Boys, Bananarama Girls, and then there's me.
Jaffy's never had a girlfriend before.
Is that against your religion?
Writing isn't a job. I need you to do more.
Thank me later.
I didn't know music could be like that. It's like Bruce knows everything I've ever wanted.
Springsteen's what your dad listens to. Not my dad.
So Blinded by the Light is the story of Javid, who is a kid stuck in what is described when me and Lauren looked up the name of the town, which is Luton, in England. We looked it up, and it was described as England's asshole. Like, that's literally how, like, one website described it. It's pretty much the Florida of England, is what I found out. And Javid wants nothing more than to get out of his life in that town and just live his life. Not the life his parents have set out for him, not the life that society is telling him he needs to live. And what
he's mostly a writer, correct?
Right. What brings about this emotional awakening in Javid is that his friend introduces him to the music of the boss, none other than Asbury Park, New Jersey's own Bruce Springsteen. So this film, man, I absolutely loved it. It was directed by Gurinder Chadha, and she's actually directed Bend It Like Beckham, which is a film that I really enjoyed back in 2002. Really not much other of note since then, but I tell you, she's going to be remembered for this one. Like, I think this is going to be one of those coming of age stories.
This is her benchmark film, I think, as of late, for sure. But I mean, if you had, our generation remembers Bend It Like Beckham. Yeah. Not modern day kids. It doesn't hold up. I think this one is going to hold up, trickling. It's going to trickle into people's hearts down the line.
And I got to say, Vivek Kallara, who is the main actor in it, he plays Javik, is absolutely charming, but also wonderful in the role. Like, he brings a power to this character that, I wasn't really expecting. I was kind of expecting more of like a Haley Steinfeld type performance and like Edge of 17 and stuff like that. I think this goes deeper. I think this goes very deep. And also the fact that it's a story about growing up as a Pakistani kid in a time where England wasn't as accepting of them, of other races and stuff. The NF is a big deal in this movie, right? Where racism plays a large part of it, and also his own struggles with being both British and Pakistani at the same time,
along with the coming age aspects with his father in particular, and not just his family.
They also very purposely draw parallels between 1987 and the Iron Lady Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan and what's going on in both the UK and the United States today. Like, they draw very clear parallels that it's almost like both countries are kind of backsliding into where we were in the 80s. It also takes place during the recession of the 1980s, which both countries were suffering, and there is this level of poverty and need to do something big to get yourself out of the situation, and that type of stuff, it really speaks to me. But the way they integrate the music, the first time they do it, it's a little off-putting, right? He puts on the headphones, he kind of walks around. It plays like a music video. The lyrics to the songs are playing real big on the wall, like it's a projection and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, how cheesy. But as the film goes on, they become better at integrating it into the story. And I think what that is the first time he experiences it, he's experiencing it in that way that it's overwhelming. So
there's own euphoria about it.
So to you as the audience, it's overwhelming to see.
Sure. But I think what's more interesting is it has nothing to do with Bruce. It has everything to do about the power of music and lyrics in particular, striking a very strong chord with a lot of individuals out in the world and in different kind of contexts and different kind of ways and meanings, and how that impacts their lives for better or worse. And this particular artist himself really spoke to him, and that's why he gravitated so much to Bruce.
Exactly. It's one of those things where while watching it, a lot of the things in the film are about paying attention to Bruce Springsteen's lyrics. And it's something that's I like Bruce Springsteen. I'm not a huge Springsteen fan or anything.
Same.
But while watching this, as they're talking about the lyrics, and I was like, holy shit, I never listened to Bruce Springsteen lyrics, right? I was always, shouting, baby, I was born to run. But I never listened to the lyrics, leading up to that chorus. And I was like, fuck, man, these are some deep lyrics coming from the boss, man.
That was always my struggle with his music. He's almost like Bob Dylan-esque, where it's really folky kind of, sort of.
A little bit.
And without the chorus, they just sometimes fall flat with me because I'm not a lyricist. Right. That's my problem with music.
But watching this, like seeing that, I was like, holy shit! I could see how an 18-year-old kid,
right? I appreciate that,
would gravitate towards this music, especially feeling the way Javik does in his current situation.
Absolutely.
And I gotta say, like it's a really refreshing movie to watch. Like that's all I gotta say. Like it's a really refreshing movie.
I shed 2 teardrops.
Yeah, wonderful coming of age story. The family dynamic is so well drawn out, and a lot like Crazy Rich Asians was, where it's like this film that comes from a perspective of a different culture, but it's something that we can absolutely relate to. It doesn't matter what culture you come from, what religion you subscribe to, or what country you come from either. It matters that like this message gets through to everybody, even though it may come from a different place. It's something we all relate to.
Yeah.
We all relate to growing up. We all relate to wanting to get out and stuff like that. But it's that aspect of a different culture that you're watching that kind of gravitates you in a little bit. And if you are of that culture, if you are, of a Pakistani culture or of an Indian culture or, of an Asian culture, it's something that you can watch and be like, yeah, I can relate, right? Like we may not be able to relate to his family life, but there are things in his family life that we can relate to.
Yes.
And there's things about this story that we can all relate to. And I just think it has a very special voice, and it's something that I really enjoyed watching. There was only a few moments in the film where, I was like, I
think the editing had some work that needed to be done.
Some of the musical integrations were very much like a music video, and I think that was very purposeful because it's a kid kind of living in his own head in those moments, but at the same time it kind of drew me out of like the emotion of everything else that was going on a little bit. And then Haley Atwell is in it, which she's lovely. Of course we love her as Peggy Carter, but in this she's just kind of like this, she's like this teacher who's like guiding him and stuff like that. She's fine, but like I was just like, I kind of wanted, seeing her, I wanted more from it, right?
I think really she just wanted to be attached to the story and add a little bit more of a spotlight because of her name.
Right. I don't want to knock it for her,
which is great.
I think by seeing her, I was like, oh, I kind of expected a little bit more from her being there. But she was really just kind of like someone to usher the story along and give Javik something different to move to in the next, in the next act. And then finally, there is an old man that's in it. He has like an old man that's a neighbor. Throughout the entire time, I was calling him the old man from Home Alone. Or the old woman from Home Alone 2, or Aunt May in any of the Spider-Man films. He's this old man that happens to tell Javik exactly what he needs to hear when he needs to hear it. You know what I mean?
That's convenient.
Right. Like that.
Where the fuck was my guy?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Where was my old man that told me exactly what I needed to hear when I needed to hear it? That
I would take an old lady. Even.
Right.
Jeez.
That perfect, end of second act speech that you get from an old person that sets you on the path that you should have been on the entire time. He shows up to do that every now and then in the film. And for me, and I was just like, wow, okay. I mean, we didn't need him to progress the story, but I guess our character's too dumb to look at, extrovertedly at everything that's going on around him and to make the right decision.
That's true.
So we'll have, because he's a kid. He's an 18-year-old kid. He's absorbed in himself. It takes someone with a little bit of years and a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of someone who fought the Nazis to tell you how you should be feeling about situations. But ultimately, I absolutely loved this movie. I really enjoyed just about every second of it, and I'm going to watch it again. It's definitely something that I'm going to pick up and I'm going to check out again. I'm going to be giving it an A. I'm just going to be giving it an A. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
I'm sitting here wrestling to be like, what did I like about it? And I was like, nothing. There was really nothing. There was one montage.
Minor,
that I was like,
some filmmaking errors, that you can complain about here and there a little bit.
But the story lifts you up so much. It just lifts you up so much.
And a lot of the scenes and a lot of the acting within the scenes really landed, landed strong.
Absolutely.
Too. So that's good.
So that's going to do it for Super Movie Brothers tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to the episode. If you are enjoying the episode, you'd like to get more of Super Movie Brothers, you can head over to our Patreon. That is patreon.com/Super Movie Bros podcast. As little as $1 a month, you can get all those additional episodes that we put up there, and you can also have a little bit of a say in the show, you can put in some votes that we put up for movie cocktails and stuff like that. If you pledge more, you get to have more direct control over the main show
topics
itself.
that you want me to talk about, whatever.
You can choose top fives. You can choose.
Sure.
You can choose.
Have fun with it. Yeah.
You could choose some movie cocktail categories when we start doing the movie cocktail categories for season 3. Really, anything you suggest to me, I'll try to integrate into the Patreon. So head over to patreon.com/supermoviebros podcast and get a little bit more of us if you're enjoying us. Also, if you're enjoying the show, help us out a little bit. And if you're listening to us on iTunes, just give us that review. Click the review.
Yeah, give us a little bump, man.
Give us a little 5 stars.
Just need a little bread. That's all. A little.
Write out your
grease
review.
Our wheels a little
I know.
bit. A little bit. Just a little bit.
We need it to grow. We're growing boys, Jay. We're growing boys. We need to grow. We did just recently get a review this week, and this review is a 5-star review, and it says, awesome show. If you like movies and beers, these guys have put together a very entertaining show. Well worth a listen. So thank you very much for leaving that review. You didn't leave a name, but I thank you for doing that, because that it means the world to us.
It really
honestly,
does. Really appreciate it.
It lifts us up on eagle's wings. Anyway, we are part of a network. We are part of the Podfix Network. So head over to podfixnetwork.com. You can check out all the great shows that are part of the Podfix Network. You can also check out all of our recipes for season 1 of Movie Cocktail. Just click the drop down tab, go to Movie Cocktail. You'll see all of our recipes up there. Jay runs the Instagram for the beer reviews, Super Movie Bros Beer.
And on Facebook.
Yep. I run
Super Movie Bros podcast.
I run the Movie Cocktail Instagram, which I barely post anything on because we only do Movie Cocktail once a month. So once a month I get to post something on there. So
and I already do that anyway, Dave. So let's just be honest. You just want to go on there and creep.
I spy. Yeah, that's what I do. Jay runs the Facebook, where he does the creeping on Facebook. That is Super Movie Bros podcast on there. I run the Twitter, Super Movie Pod. You can follow us on there. There you can vote in some of our polls, or you can just reach out to us to chat about movies. Thomas Iannucci provides the Trailer Park music. Fantastic guy, fantastic recording artist. We absolutely love him. We would appreciate if you check him out on Spotify. Follow the link in the description. I want to thank all of you guys for listening. Have a great night. Cheers.
Cheers.